Absolutely.
Or even Be Adventurous, try a Red Hot Chili Pepper song.
Yep.
I'm not saying the whole show has to be a cover tune.
Right.
But my God, you guys could do like, I don't know, like 2 or 3 songs like that. Do Pound Cake.
Yeah.
I mean, Sam's always crying how, or if he's not crying, he's implying how, you know, the Van Hagar catalog doesn't get the same respect as the Van Halen catalog.
I know.
Well, my God, do a song. And I don't know what the impetus behind that was. I don't know if that was Joe. I don't know if that was Sam. Because Sam's always like, it's a new band. It's a new band. It's like, come on, guys.
I know.
You're a super group. Yeah. Play some songs from your prior bands, and the fans will go nuts.
Yeah.
But they never did that.
No, they never did. It was a big mistake,
Nope.
big mistake. And in fact, I believe when I spoke to Kenny Aronoff, he was kind of like, yeah, I wanted to do more. Like, he loved it too. And it's clear, it's very clear, that Sam's the guy who shut it down. It wasn't even Chad who had the Chili Peppers. He's a workaholic, that guy. Chad does everything. He works all over the place. He does a million goddamn things. But it was Sam. Chickenfoot was like the girl he just never called back. You know what I mean? He would never called him back, and he's just ghosting poor Joe. I tell you, though, it's sad when you listen to the interview, Joe is very frank and open about it. When I ask him about it, he's kind of like, yeah, I really tried hard. You'll hear it, but anyway.
But didn't Chad play on one of Joe's solo albums?
Oh, he did. Yeah.
Right? Wasn't he a drummer on one of the albums?
He was, yeah.
So obviously, Chad's available for that.
Dave, Chad is a wild man. Chad plays with so many people. He's on so many albums and different people's projects. He's one of those guys who's always filling his dance card. And so is Kenny Aronoff, by the way, too. He's another guy. He drums for everybody. So, yeah, and he has no problem. Like, he could have easily made albums with Chickenfoot, like, with no problem. Touring, he'd have to work it out with the Chili Peppers. You know, the Chili Peppers take forever to make an album. They take forever to come out with a tour. They work in very long periods. So, you know, I understand that that's his main gig. Understandable, but Chad does a million things. Just look him up and look up his discography. It is mind-blowing how many things he's on. It's unbelievable, but anyway, so Chickenfoot 3, Dave, in my opinion, I think it's a little inferior to the first one, but I think if you mix the two, you could put yourself a nice mix together with the two. And I wasn't crazy about the exact mix they put together on the best of. I would have maybe changed things up a little bit. And in the goddamn best of, it had Something's Going Wrong on there. And I was like, come on, man. Throw something else in there. That was ridiculous. So
right, but even the new song they had, it wasn't anything great.
No,
right?
It wasn't a stunner. And it wasn't something that stood out. You know what I mean? By the way, Humans Being would have been incredible with this band. You know, that would have been one to do. Humans Being, that would have been a cool song for Chickenfoot to rip up. I think that would have been fun. But maybe, Joe didn't want the comparison to Eddie. You know, you get that comparison. Obviously, that's an instant thing there, so you never know. True. Anyway, we are on to our interview with Joe Satriani. I spoke to Joe. Now, keep in mind that I spoke to Joe just before the pandemic hit. So literally like maybe a week before the pandemic hit. So this is before Ed passed away. Keep that in mind. We get into the weeds on Ed because Joe released a single from his new album, Shapeshifting, called 1980, which is sort of a dedication to Eddie Van Halen in a way. This was when Ed was alive. It wasn't like a memorial dedication. It was like tipping his hat to Eddie's style of playing. And Joe gets into the whole thing. We talk about Eddie and the influence he had on him, and when he first heard Eddie, and how he's invited him to G3 tours, all kinds of stuff. But he gets really into Eddie, even though Eddie was alive when we discussed this. He gets way into that. He talks about Chickenfoot. He talks about Sam. He talks about all kinds of stuff. His new album a little bit, but lots and lots of cool stuff there. And this is all coming up next. Take a listen.
I never really considered myself basically a musician. Basically, I'm an entertainer. I'm song and dance man. There's a lot of storytelling to be told here. There's a lot of magic, a lot of imagery. I'm the one who makes the tiger go away for you, and I'm the one who brings him back out when you least expect it. That's a whole lot more than music. Not better than music, but other than music. I never approached my life as based around music. Edward is a musician. That's what he has based his life around.
Author Greg Renoff is back with a new book, Ted Templeman, A Platinum Producer's Life and Music. The new biography of the record producer Ted Templeman, who went on to produce Van Halen, the Doobie Brothers, Van Morrison, Aerosmith, Sammy Hagar, and more. The book, which runs $19.95, and it's currently available at Amazon.com. From the man who brought you Van Halen Rising comes Ted Templeman, A Platinum Producer's Life and Music, written by Templeman as told to Greg Renoff. Available for only $19.95 at Amazon.com. Order it today.
Martin Popoff here. Hope you're enjoying this latest episode of Dave and Dave Unchained, the Wise Swamis on All Things VH. Just wanted to remind you that at martinpopoff.com, I've got 2 Van Halen books that I wrote. One is Van Halen, a visual biography, which is basically a big hardcover coffee table book, 400 images, 20,000 word detailed timeline. And the other one is called Unchained, a Van Halen user manual. It's the sort of 120,000 word, very academic, a lot of crazy chapters, a lot of trivia, wordy book that I did on Van Halen. So yes, go to martinpopoff.com. I sign and ship those out of my office here in Toronto. There's PayPal buttons for the US, international, and Canada. Again, Van Halen, a visual biography, and Unchained, a Van Halen user manual. Back to Dave and Dave.
Hey everybody, this is Robert Romanus, a.k.a. Mike Damone from Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and you're listening to the Dave and Dave Unchained podcast. Oh, and by the way, I do have some Van Halen tickets for sale if you're interested.
Hey folks, I'd like to introduce you to the Classic Rock Album by Album podcast. Welcome to the Classic Rock Album by Album podcast, where no stone is left unturned in the show's epic quest to review and dissect every single rock album ever made. Join self-proclaimed rock authorities Chris Carson and Lee Bowie on their epic journey to uncover the true classics. You can find the Classic Rock Album by Album podcast wherever podcasts can be found, including Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Our website address is classicrockalbumbyalbum.libsyn.com. That's LIBSYN.com. And we can be reached on Facebook at fb.me/Classic Rock Album by Album. See you soon from the Classic Rock Album by Album podcast.
Pick up the new book Eruption, Conversations with Eddie Van Halen by Brad Tolinski and Chris Gill. These music journalists share with fans new and old alike a candid, compulsively readable, and definitive oral history of the most influential rock guitarist since Jimi Hendrix. It is based on more than 50 hours of unreleased interviews they recorded with Eddie Van Halen over the years, most of them conducted at the legendary 5150 Studios at Ed's home in Los Angeles. The heart of Eruption is drawn from these intimate and wide-ranging talks, as well as conversations with family, friends, and colleagues. In addition to discussing his greatest triumphs as a groundbreaking musician, including an unprecedented dive into Van Halen's masterpiece 1984, the book also takes an unflinching look at Edward's early struggles as a young Dutch immigrant unable to speak the English language, which resulted in lifelong issues with social anxiety and substance abuse. Eruption, Conversations with Eddie Van Halen, also examines his brilliance as an investor who changed the face of guitar manufacturing. Eruption, Conversations with Eddie Van Halen. Get your copy today on Amazon.com.
You know, there are so many convolutions to what's going on with Van Halen, and we start to get real serious about it, and I think this music's way too important to take so seriously.
Hey, Joe, how are ya?
I'm very good. How are you?
Excellent, man. It's great to talk to you. Congratulations on the new album.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Your first single that you released, 1980, is a bit of a throwback. How did that song come about, and what made you turn back the clock on that one?
Last year, we spent quite a lot of time working on the anthology of the Squares, the band that I was in from 79 to just about the beginning of 85. You know, it was really a labor of love just to sort of put that record together and finally, you know, after almost 40 years, finally get a record deal for a band that never made it in its day, but, you know, finally saw the light of day. And then I guess it was a reaction to that. You know, I was just thinking, like, what was it that I wanted to do back in 1980 that I didn't do when I was in the Squares, like for stylistic reasons or some sort of code of ethics the band had put together and laid out, you know?
Sure.
Like, don't wear that, don't play this, that kind of thing.
Right.
And so I thought, wow, yeah, I should have, you know, done a song where it starts with a guitar solo and, you know, and it echoes early rock and roll and glam and classic rock and still embraces, you know, metal and heavy metal and the kind of things I was into. Because we were a funny band, you know, we were three guys that came from different styles. And so I wrote that song as kind of like, as you said, like a throwback song to what I would have done had I just sort of taken the self-imposed shackles off, you know.
Sure.
And it just became this fun piece. And it included, you know, plugging in the MXR Phase 90 because that was popular back then. Eddie Van Halen had sort of brought back that effect. People had sort of forgotten about it, early 70s sort of pedal. But he kind of made it famous again, you know. So I thought, yeah, that's what I would have done in 1980. Yeah, it was really a lot of fun doing that.
You have mentioned Eddie as an inspiration for the tune. What was it about Eddie's playing that spoke to you?
You know, first of all, Eddie's just naturally brilliant. Everybody can hear that. It doesn't matter if you're a guitar player, musician, whatever. When he starts playing music, it just sounds like music. It puts a smile on your face. That's a real gift, you know. And if we got technical about it, he's just a freaky great guitarist, you know. He's really, you know, and his choices were always so much fun. That's what I really loved about it. You know, he wasn't always showing off. He was always just playing stuff that almost like every guitar player wanted to play. They just never thought of doing it. And then his timing is so flawless. It's so inviting, you know. His rhythmic sense and his taste, I always thought was just so brilliant. You know, it never sounded like he was practicing or it never sounded like he had rehearsed or over-rehearsed or anything like that. He just sounded so spontaneous all the time. And I think he and his brother share the same gift. It just sounded like fun every time they played. I loved it. You know, I know at the time, you know, when you think back, they came out when disco was still big. They came out when punk was really big. They came out when new wave was really big. I mean, you had bands like Sex Pistols and Billy Joel, and, you know, just like there were all these competing styles that were going around, Saturday Night Fever or Van Halen, you know?
Right, exactly. And do you remember when you first heard Eddie?
Yes, I was in my apartment. I was listening to the radio, and I remember back then I used to just sort of turn on the radio and stand there with my guitar on and just sort of jam along with the radio. You know, just you do that maybe for a half hour a day just for fun. I was living across the street from a guitar store that I was just about to start teaching at, and I spent 10 years actually teaching at that store. But I do remember the moment I'm standing there in my living room, and I got the guitar on, and Eruption starts, and I just stopped. It was just like one of those things where, you know, you're playing along with stuff they're playing, and then all of a sudden that comes on, and you just stop and you go, oh my God, that's brilliant, you know. I didn't dare play a note, you know, I just put my hands down. And I remember getting the record and bringing it to my friends. I kept saying, you guys got to hear this guitar player in this band. I mean, it was party music, you know what I mean? It wasn't really a deep message.
Right.
And there was a lot of that going on. There was escapism, and there was serious music, there was protest music, there was all kinds of stuff going on. But this just sounded kind of natural and fun. But if you tried to play it, you go, oh my God, these guys are really great. There's like some super musicianship going on here.
Sure. And what kind of impact did his playing have on your style?
Well, I think just like everybody else, it was a big slap in the face. I can